Some vehicles make no apologies for what they deliver to the open road. Some vehicles are fast and loud, and other ones just take up the whole lane, this one being the latter option. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is the second generation of the 2018 Nissan Armada, and what we're going to look at is what this vehicle truly delivers both in size and in innovation. The Armada has been out for about 15 years. This is the second generation, which has only taken up a few years of that. The first generation really being more of a truckish, straightforward SUV. I really like that lineup. This one delivers a little bit more softness around the edges when it comes to the curves and premium look. Now, what's great about the Armada is it makes no apologies. It is truly a behemoth on the road, takes up the full lane, and pretty much a straight full-size SUV. But with the design here, the second generation, you do see a little bit of refinement. Where this has come from is from its premium sibling, the Infinity version. A little bit refinement around the edges, some curves, but overall luxury when you look at this vehicle. So this is a vehicle that definitely isn't for the novice when it comes to, well, comfort zone with parking, because after all, it's really going to demand your attention when you get into the tight spots. But again, there's some innovations with this vehicle that really helps minimize the scrapes and dings. Now, by the numbers, this vehicle is quite lengthy. Wheelbase around about 121 inches. Overall length about 209 inches. Now it's well into the full size segment and really delivers that premium luxury on the inside, not by the leather, but by the amount of occupants you can deliver to the party. Now, some other big numbers really is the height. This vehicle is going to be easily over 6 feet tall and truly about 6.5 feet wide. That truly demands a presence on the road. And what I like with that is just the roadworthiness you get with a vehicle like this. This vehicle is the Platinum Reserve, which pretty much means all the options come standard and there's very little you have to really opt in for. Now, what I like on this vehicle is all the innovations that come on it, and it starts with safety here on the outside. A vehicle like this, you really want to have that kind of surveillance around it. What I'm referring to is the 360 view, and you've seen this on a lot of vehicles, and of course it starts at the front with the good old front camera. The side cameras mounted to the mirrors, and of course a backup camera. And there's a fourth one we'll talk about there when we get on the inside. And what that allows you to do is really dial in to the tight spots. Allows you to see all the way around this vehicle almost like you're looking down on it. And you'll see that when we look at the screen on the inside. Other things to think about is really minimizing impacts. And what I'm referring to is the mirrors themselves. They're intuitive here. Press a button, they tuck in, or you can simply manually break them away as you leave the vehicle. The next thing is good old smart key systems. Nice small key fob, even for a massive vehicle like this. And it starts right here at the driver's door. Simply press the button once, unlocks here, press it again, unlocks for everyone else. Now, one thing I would prefer is to have such access at every handle, but they just don't do that. Lastly is security at the fill up. Now, they do that quite well. And what I'm referring to is when the vehicle's locked, this is locked. When it's unlocked, you simply gain access with these. Now, they do a little bit of a throwback Thursday with the good old cap system. I'd prefer more of a capless, of course. One of the best things I love about Armada is the fact that it truly is a utilitarian vehicle. It's not just sporty, it doesn't look just big, it actually delivers all the course of the luxury and all the cargo to boot. Now, where it starts is, of course, here at the business end. And it really starts, well, with the design. First off, with a huge, non-apologetic rear tailgate. Got a little bit of a modest spoiler, and this has a little bit of operation with it. First off, there is a backup camera. Now, that's not the same as the one down here. This is really for reversing and seeing what's behind you, even for towing. This one will couple nicely with that rear view mirror, and I'll show you that in just a second. Well, it also has a decent spoiler. Now, what I prefer on some of the other SUVs that this one should do is actually take this rear windshield wiper, place it up here, allows it to hide away, actually makes this glass operational. Again, something the SUVs are getting away from. That would just allow the cargo to extend out like it used to do back in the good old days. Now, what you also have is just a huge, massive offering when it comes to the tailgate itself. Now, this is a power lift hatch, of course, what you expect on something that's called Platinum and Reserve. As you look at the overall design, of course, body color all the way around. And one thing that seems a little bit odd is actually a rear bumper. This is actually a nice step up into the vehicle and maybe even just a good area for tailgating. Lastly is operation as you get down here. This vehicle does have actually tow capacity, especially when equipped with that big V8 like it comes. This is going to tow around about 8,500 pounds. definitely a workhorse. The biggest part of this vehicle really is the business end, the good old cargo that lies beneath the rear hatch. Now again, this is the Platinum Reserve, so it does have the power rear hatch, and one thing you will note that it does have a somewhat slow operation, but that's to be expected when you have such a heavy rear hatch trying to get up out of the way. Now what you're going to find when it comes to cargo is about 16 cubic feet here behind the third row. As you lay that forward, it's going to more than triple, around about 50 cubic feet. And of course, if you want to go full throttle, that's going to be around about 95 cubic feet total. Now, with all the variations for laying seats flat and all that, you have tons of cargo options and people hauling, however you want to do it. Looking at the operation for the third row, one thing to really look at is these rear headrests. Now, once you extend them, what you're going to notice is this is truly a big blind spot when you look in the rear view. But again, there's kind of a fix for that, and I'll show you in just a second. When no one's back here, simply leave them down. It really gives you a nice view out the back window. Now, when it comes to operation, what's great is this is powered. Again, this is the Reserve Platinum. So basically, press the button, it's going to tumble them forward. Now, of course, a manual operation would go just a little bit quicker, but on a premium vehicle, why struggle? Let the vehicle do it for you. And of course, there's one button for the left side and one for the right. Now, the outside has really alluded to what this vehicle does when it comes to hauling people, but only when you get behind the wheel do you truly feel the overall size. It almost feels like you're kind of piloting a Boeing 747. Now, once you get here, this is where everyone wants to be. The captain's chair, the overall feel, the size, really all starts here. Everything right where you want it, even right down to your navigation, which every true pilot needs. Now again, legroom numbers way at the back, a little bit less, but truly in the second and front row, around about 41 inches. Again, making this vehicle accommodate almost anyone. But what I like is right up here. This is where you want to be. As you sweep across the dash, one thing you'll notice is right there front and center, the good old touch screen system. Now it is somewhat of a stretch away, and it's just really too far to use the screen as a touch screen. Instead, you're going to pretty much use a lot of shortcuts down here. Now, one thing that's always there is the navigation. Anytime I got in the vehicle, this was kind of front and center. And I get the fact that we're kind of piloting a big beast, but the one thing I truly wanted was, of course, my entertainment. Now, everything's right there where you want it. And I like the fact that it does have little shortcuts that you can relate to on the screen itself, but the shortcuts down below made it just a little bit easier. Now, one thing I like is also the cameras. Now, this is what we talked about earlier with that surround view. Of course, the mirrors that give you the view on the left and right, of course, the front and back. And this really helps maybe make this vehicle feel a lot smaller, because this is giving that bird's eye view that basically helps you minimize scrapes and dings. Now again, with the screen kind of too far of a stretch away from the driver, this is really what you're going to use the most. These shortcuts pretty much is what I used all the time for the entertainment, and you do have shortcuts to get to various functions, and you do have kind of a Throwback Thursday CD player if you want to use it. Now down below is your dual zones for climate. I like the fact we have dial-in knobs for the temperature. That does, of course, relate to the screen up above. Fan speed, I'm always more of a big fan for a knob here. Makes for adjustments a little bit quicker, but this is just a push button operation, no big deal. Now what you also have is, of course, ease of airflow here and various mode functions through the buttons over here. Way down low on the dash, this is where you'll find some other controls specifically for heating up or cooling down the front seats. And I like the fact this is a dial-in specific setting, and you can pretty much leave it and forget it. That means every time you crank the vehicle, it will heat up your seat quite well or cool it down in the summer months. Of course, you do have a old traditional power supply and 2 USB connections up here for charging. Between the front occupants is quite a wide area for basically all the various operations that you find on every vehicle when it comes to cup holders, even the four-wheel drive. Now, first off is the cup holders. Now, it's all hidden under this nice, sleek covering. One thing I found, though, is the cup holders are quite large. Now, that's good because you can pretty much put anything in there, but when you have smaller items, they tend to be slung around. And my assumption is maybe there's something supposed to be here to grip them a little bit tighter. I'd prefer just some rubber grips that really hold your drinks in place. Now, what you also see is the selector knob for four-wheel drive. I didn't use this pretty much, left it in auto, but if you want to take this off-road, again, this has about 9 inches of clearance that really can take this vehicle almost anywhere. One of the newest innovations that you won't find here on the Armada is the digital readout when it comes to the gauge cluster. Instead, good old school analog tach and speedometer. But what I like is they really have made these big and pronounced, and really makes for a quick glance like the old school way we've always done it. Now, there is kind of a digital readout in the middle. That gives you minimal information and no digital speed here to note. I've alluded to it a few times, basically the good old mirror can be blocked when you put up those rear headrests and really give you a lot of blind spots. But what Nissan Armada has done well is made it more forward thinking. And what I'm referring to is a camera. That one we mentioned there at the back glass really allows you to go down the road when you have maybe a lot of cargo in the back of the vehicle. This allows you to still have a traditional rear view mirror that allows you to see what's going on behind you. Now, the Backseat Drivers is almost what it's about here on their Armada, the Platinum Reserve, because when you look back here, you really see a lot of attention to detail. And it starts here on the second row. First off, the bench styling, really nice and soft. It's padded, a little bit more comfort, of course, than the third row. Individualized attention kind of on the outer side with kind of a quilt stitching. And also you have heated seats for both occupants as well, plus your own climate controls here, plus some entertainment, which you'll find here in the headrest, and everything really centralized here on the back of the center console. What I also like is the USB charging, which most people are going to be looking for when you're taking them down the road. Now, when it comes to operation, what I also like is the ease of operation here on this vehicle. Now, there's no real handles here on the side. There is a handle here. That's for really the reclinability here on the second row, just the same as the third. Really allows you to dial in your comfort. Second is really the ingress, and what I like is really pulling the handle here is going to tumble this forward with ease and flip it forward. That's going to give you great ingress. Now, one thing to note, there is a side step rail here. That's going to be helpful because it is quite a lift just to get to this floor bottom, but really makes for a nice aisleway. Now, one area on a big SUV that's kind of an afterthought has to be the backseat drivers, and what I'm referring to is really the furthest back, the third row. Typically, it's going to be the worst legroom, the worst airflow, worst everything, but not on an Armada. This is really just as comfortable as anywhere else, and it really starts with the overall seating position. First off, the seat bench itself is really low, to be expected. That's going to raise your knees just a little bit. So when you look at the legroom numbers on paper, around about 28, 29 inches, it doesn't appear to be that much. And that's mainly because your knees are raised. And what I've noticed, even with my 6-foot+ frame, plenty of room. And that also has to do with the design of the seat backs here. It's just arched just a little bit, gives you a little bit more breathing room overall. The other thing to talk about really is the overall function. What you have is room for 3 people back here. You have actually 4 cup holders across the back, and you can actually recline these seats to feel a little bit more comfortable. And of course, here on the Reserve, that means it's going to be a premium option, basically meaning you press a button and it reclines you back. And as you do that, you actually find that it's quite comfortable. It actually feels like you're kind of lounging as you go down the road. Lastly is airflow. This vehicle actually has tons of airflow here across the ceiling, and even with the cathedral-like feel, headroom is nice, airflow is nice, and the overall comfort. I haven't got the gist. This vehicle doesn't make any apology, and it starts really right here at the power plant, a good old V8 like the good old days. That versus other vehicles that are doing like EcoBoost V6s and all that. This one's just going with the good old standard operating procedure. Now, specifically, this is a 5.6 liter V8. Now, it's going to deliver around about 390 horses and 394 foot-pounds of torque. And again, it delivers over 8,000 pounds of towing capacity, plus enough room to carry 8 people, something other vehicles just can't do very well. Now, with an engine like this, one thing you definitely got to deliver is grill warfare, both to let people know, hey, get out of my way, and also to breathe a lot of air through this front end. Now, it starts with a good old huge grill right in the middle, nice air induction down low, and even better, operational vents here on the side. Really allowed a lot of airflow to help cool this V8 just from the start. Now, what I also like is there's a little bit of refinement. This is a big SUV, but we're a little bit soft around the edges. And you see that, of course, in some refinement, some curves, but also look at the headlights. Nice and bedazzled, and, well, of course, big. Really wrapping around, giving you a lot of illumination, and, well, a little bit more wow factor. Of course, we're continuing all the body color all the way around, and this vehicle has some modest chrome features. That does it for this full-size edition of Road Warrior and our test drive behind the wheel of the 2018 Nissan Armada Platinum Reserve. Now, this vehicle makes no apologies. It's going to take to the road. It's going to fill most of it up, and even better, it's going to, well, demand its parking space when it gets there. Now, what I like is, of course, all the innovations. Even though this vehicle definitely has some brawn, it also has some brains, well, and a little bit of beauty, and you'll see that all on the inside. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.